Epstein Island and that whole thing, did you ever come across any of that? Or
Oh yeah, I know so many of the victims, and EpsteinJustice.org, Nick Bryant's organization. I'm involved in that. It's all about the victims and about demanding that the names of the customers, is revealed. I think he wrote the Franklin Papers, which is about boys and previous presidential candidates. He and I was contacting the '80s to be the expert witness because a lawyer was going to civilly sue Epstein, and
in the
when
80s?
in the '80s,
Hmm.
and the Department of Justice went after him to try and take his law license.
So it
And
is.
and friends of mine who were other lawyers, that advocates that I'd worked together, they said, you got to have Lois. So I said, I'm available. So the police chief was so furious that the Department of Justice wouldn't do anything because presidential names are on that list. And
All of them, probably.
I don't know how many. I mean, but a lot of names are on that list. I
Yeah.
mean, some of the wealthiest people in the country or in
Right.
the world, even.
Right.
And
There is an elite trafficking ring.
oh, no question, no question. And so what happened was the chief of police, I think in Fort Lauderdale, was so furious that he prosecuted him, a federal crime, but prosecuted it in state court under the state laws. And Epstein got prison for, I think, 18 months.
Yeah.
But he got work furlough. So his limo picked him up every morning, took him to his office. He went up to the penthouse where he probably had all his toys.
Yeah.
And then he went back at night, which was probably all dressed up, as we know you can do if you have money and you're in prison. And it went on. And he also went to deposition Prince Andrew. The Queen had moved him out of the country when he got there. Just lots and lots of cover-up. He said the only person that helped him was when he called President Trump at the White House. And he picked up the phone. And
Yeah.
he said, what do you need? I'll tell you everything.
And that's why they don't like him.
Well, one of the reasons,
Yeah.
he's like the whistleblower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Puts us all to shame.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's anyway, thank you for answering that. That's
Yeah.
because
But
when you said that to me at lunch, I
so
was like,
that's
am I
just
crazy?
like when banks use the term fidelity and trust, which is a bullshit screen for them stealing everybody's money. So when they say they're working on child trafficking, that's a bullshit screen to not do anything about child prostitution.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what's happening in California right now, right?
You're right.
Because
Well, it's all over the United States.
but especially in California, because you said there's 11-year-old girls in high heels naked on Figueroa Street
Mm-hmm.
in the daytime.
And they have 9-year-olds too. There was one 9-year-old they found.
In the daytime,
Yes.
performing sex acts
Yes.
at 2 p.m. where families are driving by
Right.
in the streets.
No families. Everything shuts down on that street. I mean, because there's schools and there's community centers and the fences are high and the lights are out and they've got, rails on their windows. They're scared. But men just come through one right after the other to have sex with them.
And the state government knows about this?
Oh,
And
the
they
police
just
are out there. The police are out there.
But California law just decriminalized prostitution.
Yes.
And now they not only won't arrest child prostitutes, but they won't do nothing to help them either.
Yes, they do. They pick them up and they turn them over to DCFS or DSS, whatever, Department of Children's Services.
Which also prostitutes them.
Well, it happens a
That
lot.
was my next question. Are
It
those
happens a lot.
agencies involved?
So it's like,
No, the police involved?
No, the child services and CPS. We've had other whistleblowers on the
Yeah.
show. About that.
Well, I mean, certainly
Not
we've
all
had
of them.
kids who've been abused,
Yeah.
by those people.
in that system.
In that system.
Is it just
But
people?
you think about it, you got a 13-year-old girl who's naked, maybe in stilettos, and a social worker's waiting at the police station and takes him and drops him off at a foster home.
Yeah.
Where do you think that child's going? She's going to the bedroom,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And you can't dress her up in pink and blue and say, we're going to go to school tomorrow. It just doesn't work that way. She's out the window before any of that happens anyway, unless she grabs what she can steal. Because the kids will call me when they run from the foster homes and they said, the police are chasing me. I said, drop what you got. Probably committing a law, violating a law, but...
Well, their only hope is to find their way to your organization.
Well,
I mean,
but my
my
hands are
God.
tied too. I can't put them in any shelter. The federal law says you can only put them in foster care. And you're supposed to give the FBI first shot so they can interview them and see if they have a pimp, because then they're going to go on a material witness hold in juvenile hall.
Where they stay in prison as long as they want them there, right?
Yeah, well, until they testify. No crime, no criminal record, so they're not violating any child right laws. They say it's for their own protection.
But
they get meals.
they're just in prison forever.
Yeah, they're with General
Well, not
Pop.
forever, but for a long time. And I had a little
Years?
13-year-old.
Years?
I don't know if anyone has been there for years, but I know kids have been there over a year. And we had a 13-year-old in Fresno who tried to hang herself 15 times in 30 days. And finally we went to the judge. This is stupid. Let her go.
So they put them in juvenile hall with like
In solitary confinement.
Okay.
They don't want anybody talking to them.
Okay.
Federal government, they don't want any
That's
counseling.
awful.
They don't want them talking to anybody about their case. It's all theirs.
Is it ineptitude or is it criminal? Like, is that, I can understand the
It's all
It's
to
all about
protect them.
control. It's control. They're lazy and it makes their job easy.
Right.
You know, I used to have this FBI agent, and I said, you know, you're the only one, you know, who really, you know, lets the kids stay here and you don't worry about it. She says, I'm the FBI. You don't think I can find a 16-year-old you know, when I need her for court?
Hmm.
And besides, you know, when the kids would call and we'd know where they were and stuff, we'd say time to come in. They'd come in to go to court and testify and put away a guy that threatened to kill them. You know, so, but that was too informal, too much for them. The stuff they do. There's been district attorneys who've lost their law license, who've been threatened with jail for faking evidence and stuff, for trumping up
you're
these
talking about
cases.
Kamala
They
Harris?
don't do it. I don't know anything about her,
Just kidding.
and
She did stuff like that when she was DA of California. That's another
Oh.
podcast.
I don't know anything about her.
She hid evidence that would have got somebody out because she wanted to keep him in prison. That's true. Tulsi called it out. But another episode, sorry.
I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah.
No, we will.
You
tell
will be a lot in the
It's
next few
gonna
months.
come out a
Yeah.
lot now that she's in the box,
Mm-hmm.
big public box. But do you have any hope?
I have lots of hope. Because I have so many kids that are making it, you know, and they pick me up every day.
How can you? Well, I know you're working on setting up your legacy so that
Mm-hmm.
it continues after we pass our mortal coil,
Mm-hmm.
because we're in our 70s.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think, how can it be replicated in every city and every town
Well,
in
you know,
America?
that's interesting because that's what Backpage wanted to do, and they were willing to fund it until the government decided that they were the biggest pimps in the whole world, which was not true. They ran a newspaper that ran free ads.
Well, it was
Because there was
Village
a
Voice,
real
right? Wasn't it Village Voice? And their
Well, it was
Backpage?
they owned Village Voice, and when they sold it, they kept the Backpage, which was just the free press. And it became, they stumbled on it. They weren't after it to run child sex trafficking, and they stumbled on it, and they had all these, you know, pimps trying to advertise kids. And they made their mistake because they were giving all of their cases and the suspects that they thought were pimps that were trying to use their paper, giving that information to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Kids, another FBI organization. And I said, don't do that. They're going to use it against you. And I was just a young little blonde girl, and these two older men, you know, were very salty businessmen. And they said, well, who should we give it to? And I said, you need to give it to the local police. And so when I told the local police, they said, this is what I got. I said, because the local police were setting up female cops in hotel rooms
Mhm.
and running ads and then waiting for men to come so they could arrest them.
Mhm.
It was not that much prostitution. They dismantled that whole program because they said most of it was just dirty talking.
Yeah.
You know? So, but the local police were able to do some really good work. And I took them into New York, and then some politician found out I was in town, and then the inspector general called me the next day and said, we're not meeting with Backpage today. I said, no, you're meeting with me, and Backpage is on my team. He said, exactly, you know, because you learn how to talk, what to get people through the system. And so we had this meeting with 12 cops, and we had this big screen, and they got to talk to all the kids in the shelter. And he kept asking them, what is it we can say to you when we rescue you from this guy? And we say, you know, we're going to help you. You know, why don't you tell us? Why don't you help us help you? And the kids really were perplexed and didn't know what to say. And I said to him, you're asking the wrong question. And he says, well, what's the right question? I says, ask her when's the first time she saw a policeman. When's the first time you met a policeman? They came to my house and they took my mother to jail for methamphetamine. They knew that was wrong. What the mother did was wrong. But that was the first experience of the police officers taking your mother away. When's the second time you saw a policeman? They came to my house and they took my dad away for some other kind of crime. And what did they say to you? He asked. And she says, he didn't say anything. They left me with my 16-year-old brother who was raping me. And he said, oh my God, we got to put police officers back in the schools to teach kids, you know, who the heroes are and who can help them. And so and he got it. And he called me up. He said, because they had this political problem about dealing with Backpage. I said, okay, just do this. You need information on a guy. You call me. I'll call Backpage. They'll call me. I'll call you back. They said, no, we want to do it direct. So how that would work is they'd be sitting on a guy that they know he's got a child in a motel room, but they don't have enough to go in. Contact Backpage. Backpage gives them the ID, all the information you have to run the ad. They run it through their computer, always on parole now, they can go in. And they said, we rescued 4 girls in the first week. So we really had a program that was really starting and was really going to work. But it kind of would have run the government, you know, out of business of
child trafficking.
I hate to say it.
No, this is the right place to say
I mean,
it.
I'm not saying that they're child traffickers, but
Some
run them out of the business of rescue. Of course they are.
Yeah, it's fundraising. Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
fidelity and trust.
So you see